are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find everything at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And as far as what you can find there, that's episodes, all the episodes, links to social media, ways to support the show, and friends of the show, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays when she can make it, and other friends as well that I co-host with on their own shows. So, getting back to these experiences here, thank you all for being here and listening in, however you're listening to this. This next one says, this happened maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I woke up and, as usual, made my coffee and a tea for my boyfriend, who was coming to visit. Suddenly, I felt an earthquake, which was nothing big. It may have been a little shake. Suddenly, my boyfriend called me and said he wasn't coming after all because he had to work. I shrugged it off, sad, and drank my coffee. I looked at the clock, and it said it was 10:34 a.m. This seemed weird because I woke up at 9:30 a.m. But I shrugged it off, thinking time runs when you're having fun. I drank my coffee and scrolled on my phone for a bit when suddenly the earthquake came back about 30 minutes later, but now in a different direction. This creeped me out. I called my mom at what should have been 11 a.m. sharp, and she said she didn't feel anything. Then I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, and it was my boyfriend. My phone alarm went off. It was 10:34 again, and the quake repeated. This time both of us felt it. We talk about it constantly, but I still have questions. Did I talk to a stranger? Did all 3 quakes happen? Am I going crazy? And why am I the only one who remembers all 3? And that's where that one ends. That is fascinating because it sounds like a distortion in time and or reality where, again, her boyfriend called and said he was going to work, so he couldn't make it, but then he shows up. Doesn't say if work got canceled. I wouldn't think it would, but it is just odd having these weird time and or space anomalies at the same time as these tremors or these earthquakes that not everyone remembers all of them. Now, that could just be because they were not in the areas where they happened directly, I guess. It's just odd to have all this time dilation or just distortion happening at the same time as possibly earthquakes going on. And coming from different directions is also kind of odd to me, even though I don't know much about earthquakes and how they work. The whole experience to me, excuse me, is just really odd. And even with everything else, with the boyfriend not being able to show up and then showing up, even without the earthquakes, the time is a thing that, to me, sort of ties it all together as maybe being really something anomalous there. And then possibly, again, the quakes or the tremors or the shakes there. So I don't know, but I found that one. I really thought that was fascinating because is there a connection? I wonder if you were to ask people in certain areas where when there's some kind of a shake in the ground, are there time anomalies that sort of get written off because you're dealing with an earthquake? And I'm not saying it has to happen every time, because I think we'd hear about that then. But it just makes me wonder how many other people out there who, for whatever reason, however their whatever their DNA is or whatever they've experienced or however that works, when there are these massive changes or movements of the ground beneath and around them, do they have odd experiences outside of just the ground, the earthquaking? So just a lot of questions there, and yeah, really thought that was one worth sharing, just in case I ever come across anything similar again as well. This next one is a bit of a longer one. I guess the last one was kind of long too. But anyway, this one says, one cousin lived in the same town as me. One lived an hour away, and the other lived an hour and a half away. When we were kids, we would have family get-togethers throughout the years. We were all like 4 to 6 age-wise at the time. We were sitting on the carpet in the living room, all 4 of us facing each other, just laughing and being silly like kids do. There was a penny on the floor, and one of us put it in the middle of the circle and was just playing with it. One of us was playing with a rag or handkerchief, and we decided to cover the penny and see if the penny would disappear, like a magic trick. So we set the penny down, covered it, and laid the handkerchief out flat. Then we removed it, and the penny was gone. We looked everywhere. Nobody had it in their lap or in their hands. It wasn't in the handkerchief. It was just gone. So naturally, we set the handkerchief back in the middle of the floor of the circle, flattened it out, and then removed it, and there was the penny. None of my cousins has denied this or claimed it was a prank to this day, and we're all middle-aged at this point. So either one of us is playing the longest game of psych, gotcha, for no rhyme or reason at this point, or something else happened that day that none of us can explain. Probably the most blatantly obvious glitch I've seen in my life, but a good one to have, and that's where that one ends. That is fascinating, especially if none of them really did that. None of them found a way to perform what is sort of a classic magic trick. I wonder if, because it was such a small object, if their collective thoughts or hopes or intentions or expectations caused it to temporarily vanish, especially since it was a small object, or if there was some consciousness there that was watching everything that caused the penny to disappear and then brought it back, made it reappear. It's odd because you would think if there was something there that was aware of everything, maybe they'd be doing more things. But so I don't know. But it seems like either way it's possible there. And again, I mean, there's no way to know if someone played a trick, but just considering the other possibilities there, it really is a fascinating experience. And makes me wonder about, we know that there's this idea of thought forms. Well, what if when you're thinking about something, you don't necessarily make another entity or consciousness, but you can also do other things like make objects vanish and then reappear if you're, again, focused on it enough and thinking about it enough. maybe that can happen. I don't know. So, moving on to the next one here. Let's see here. This one says, I have a question. Have any of you ever experienced, or do you still experience, things like this? And do you think they might have some kind of meaning? Excuse me. When I lived in my old house, I would hear voices. Sometimes it sounded like one person, and sometimes like many. When I say many, try to imagine walking through a crowded place and hearing 100 different voices and random words at once. Sometimes I could hear arguments, sometimes whispers. I had the feeling that they did not want to wake me up or scare me. That presence felt 100% real. Sometimes I could hear fighting and the clashing of cold steel, like swords. Often, around 11 p.m. or midnight, I would hear a piano from the distance, yet it felt as if it was right there in the room with me. I do not know how to explain it. Early in the morning, just before dawn, I would hear someone calling out, and it felt as if something was pulling me from behind. Every time I turned around, there was nobody there, except that eerie presence. Have any of you experienced anything similar? It would be nice to know that I'm not the only one. And that's where that one ends. This is fascinating because I've heard of reports in some places of just voices, just sounds. No visual encounters. They did say that they felt something pulling them from behind. I'm guessing it wasn't a terribly strong pulling. Otherwise, it seems like they might have been more frightened, or there may have been, again, if it's depending on the force or the strength of the pull. Of course, there could be harm. It doesn't sound like that happened. I'm just wondering, and with the sounds of the people fighting, I'm wondering if they're picking up on either residual energy from other times, where let's say maybe something happened in the area, there was some kind of battle. And again, they don't say where they were at, so who knows? And I don't blame them. You don't always want to be talking about exactly where these experiences happen. But yeah, I'm just wondering about all these sounds. Are they picking up on residual energy of just the whole past of what's been going on? Or is it also possible they're picking up on other time periods? Not necessarily residual energy left behind from those time periods, but literally picking up on sounds from other points in time, whether it's the future and or the past. I don't know, but it just seems like there's so many sounds that they're hearing there. I wonder if they're just extremely sensitive to either residual energy or some kind of whatever the force is or the mechanism is that time works on, and they're having these experiences and hearing different things from different times. So either way, that's fascinating. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, this was in 2024. It was summer. I believe it was August. My man and I were on the way home from the store. It was 11 p.m. There was no drugs involved. We're smokers, but we were not high at the time of this. There was no drinking that day. We were driving down a long, curved, two-way road. It was very dark. There weren't many lights up. There was a lot of field, so it was just a long road that led to a main street. And besides the road, it's all field and grass. Very dark. There wasn't Oops. Let me see here. Apparently I was reading the same line over again. Okay. We were the only car out the whole time we were driving on this road. I usually do not pay attention to my surroundings. I'm almost never focused on the road when I'm a passenger. But this time, I had my eyes dead set on the road. As we were making the curve and we were getting closer to the traffic light to the main street, I saw a werewolf or a dogman or a human hybrid looking animal just stopped on the side, in the middle of the road for a quick second. I believe he was coming from the right field and our headlights startled it, so it stayed in the middle of the road. And I remember it looked our way before making a sprint for it. And by sprint, I mean it took about 5 huge steps, and before I knew it, it was on the left field. It was a long, animal-looking thing. I remember comparing it to Slender Man, almost because of how tall and skinny it was. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's a tall, shadowy figure with tentacles basically coming out of the back of it, dark tentacles, and some other features. It is a fictional entity, but it seems to be based on, or at least it seems to have connections to previous reports of similar shadow figures, which is odd. In other words, there were reports of something similar before this fictional character was ever made. Anyway, sidetracked there. Talking about this werewolf-like thing here in this post. It had extremely long arms and legs, and it was very, very skinny, very animal-like. But I specifically remember it having a werewolf or German Shepherd looking face. I thought it was a coyote. It was hairy like a werewolf or dog or coyote, but it walked on its 2 hind legs, and it was hunchbacked. It also had kind of deer-like legs. I had heard about skinwalkers before, but wasn't too informed on them. I had never seen anything like it before. Just today I came across a video of a guy talking about his experience running into a skinwalker. It sounded exactly like my experience. Could I have seen a skinwalker? My man said he didn't see anything. He said he has no recollection, and even when I screamed at him to brake, he seemed completely confused. The road was empty to him. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Why did it only reveal itself to me? It looked so rabid, so hungry. It was such a scary sight. As we drove further away, I turned around and kept my eyes locked on it. It didn't move. It stayed very still in the field. My man still didn't see anything. Do you guys believe in skinwalkers? And that's where that one ends. I'd be curious, and there's no way to know what part of the country this was in, because the whole skinwalker phenomenon is a very specific thing from what I've heard it from Utah and other parts of the country there in that area, from people that have been here for a lot longer than Europeans have, basically, colonizers have. And so I don't know if that's what they saw. That does sound like they saw something anomalous, some kind of creature. Well, I say they. This one person saw it. Their partner did not see it, which is odd but not unheard of. Sometimes people have experiences and one person will see something and another won't, or 2 people or more people will see different things. And I think that comes down to just our own abilities and sensitivity and what we sort of, I guess, are willing to consider can exist, and what can't. Also, it can depend on, I think, whatever they're seeing. We have no idea how these things work, if they can project themselves to people, but then not project themselves to other people. I don't know. So that is a fascinating one, and I'm not sure what they saw. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, a few years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, and the best way I can describe what I saw was something that looked kind of like smoke swirling around. The thing is, I don't even feel like smoke is the right word. It's just the closest comparison I can make, because I honestly can't explain what I saw or wrap my head around it. It didn't look like actual smoke, but it had that swirling, flowing movement. So let me try to explain exactly what happened. I looked up and saw the swirling smoke-like thing, and my fiance kept asking me, "What are you looking at?" In that moment, I immediately knew it was a spirit. Without even thinking, the first word that came out of my mouth was ghost. It wasn't like I was trying to figure out what it was or guessing. It's like I just knew exactly what I was looking at. I didn't have any doubts in my mind. That feeling of certainty is one of the hardest parts to explain. The strangest part wasn't even what I saw, it was how I felt. The second I saw it, I had this overwhelming sense of peace and happiness. I wasn't scared at all. I knew it wasn't there to hurt me. It felt so real that I've never been able to forget it. My grandma told me a story years ago when I was a kid about an experience she had. She woke up and saw what she described as multiple smoke-like forms swirling all around her room. She said she wasn't afraid at all. She just felt completely calm and content. For years, I never really thought much about her story. Then, Then a few years after my own experience, something clicked. I suddenly realized that what I had seen looked exactly like what she had seen, or what described to me when I was a child. That realization gave me chills because I had completely forgotten about her story until then. I'm genuinely curious if anyone else has experienced something similar, especially the feeling of instantly knowing what you were looking at and feeling peace, happiness, or just content instead of fear. I'd love to hear your stories. That's where that one ends. That's from a forum. So, yeah, that's fascinating. And that certainty does happen. It's rare, I think, but it does happen here and there. But that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.